78% of trade contractors specifically we surveyed are either have adopted AI workflow or in the process of implementing AI workflows within their day-to-day, which was incredibly surprising. The other interesting surprise was the hurdle that they're finding. What's stopping them from adopting AI is not a fear of the technology. It's not access issues. It's really training issues, right? They don't know how to get started, or they don't have the technical knowledge to bring it in-house. And we used to have to hire an agency to come in and do some market research. We can now do that in minutes, right? With some of these deep research engines, which is super valuable, right? I mean, we're talking tens of thousands of dollars of savings overnight for a marketing team.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Bricks and Bytes podcast, where we dive into construction and AEC technology. Before we get started though, if you're a startup founder or operator responsible for innovation in your company, or you want a deeper, more insightful look into technology in AEC, you won't want to miss our newsletter. From deep dives into particular technologies such as AI, robotics, design, software, and so on. Hot takes from investors betting big in AEC technology, and advice on building tech companies, including the stories and takeaways of the most successful AEC technology founders. Head over to www.bricks-bytes.com and sign up today to get this exclusive material straight to your inbox. And now for the episode.
All right, Colin. Well, I'm glad we finally get to do this. So I think we first spoke about BuildOps on Bricks and Bytes maybe a year or so ago, and the news came out that they had raised. I think it was like 120, 115 million or something like that. You can correct that number. You're probably more up to date with the figures than me.
127.
127. There we go. And became a unicorn valuation, so over the value of $1 billion, which for the AEC, I know it's a pretty broad definition, but there's not many that exist within the industry. So that's exciting news, and exciting to have you on. So yeah, Colin, could you tell us, you're the CMO of BuildOps? I'd love to hear a little bit more about like your role there, and perhaps how this role came about, because you've been here for like 4 or 5 months now at BuildOps.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Pretty new to the BuildOps family. And thanks for having me on the show.
Sure.
Owen, super excited to be here and chat with you. So, my background spans, almost 20 years now. Always been in the AEC industry in some capacity. So, I started my early career out of college, actually CAD drafting in-house, the urban design, landscape design planning firm, which was a nice introduction to AEC, right? And how these companies operate. Did that for a while, got into marketing, worked for civil engineering for a bit, and then a much larger architecture firm in San Francisco. But, I learned what the AEC industry looked like in-house, right? I learned what it was like to be at a big architecture firm chasing new work, RFP responses, et cetera, what that looked like, and really the ecosystem of AEC, how collaborative it is as you're chasing these big mega projects, and really loved that. But, I was also living in San Francisco and saw the tech boom happening all around me. So, getting into software was also a longer term career goal of mine. So Autodesk came along. It's a company, I followed since, I was little. I grew up in Marin County where Autodesk was founded. So there was a cool tech company, hometown hero. So ended up getting a job at Autodesk in product marketing, and made that big leap over into B2B software. So loved it, was there 10 years, experienced a ton of growth during that time at Autodesk, mostly attached to their construction vertical business, right? If you remember BIM 360 and some of those products early on, that eventually turned into Autodesk Construction Cloud. So my majority of my career was really driving ACC and Autodesk growth in construction. Ultimately, I led the marketing department there. Over 100 people globally, that was really driving pretty high growth business for Autodesk. Loved my experience at Autodesk, but at some point, I had the bug. I wanted to get into the startup world, do something a little faster paced, a little different, and BuildOps came along to me, about six to 8 months ago, and I learned a lot about the company, learned a lot about the product, how fast they're growing, and what they built really for the commercial trade contracting business. So to me, I was won over and decided to take the leap and join them as CMO, like you said, about 4 or 5 months ago.
Yeah, very cool. When you're at a company like Autodesk, and you're one of the marketing team. In your case, you mentioned heading up the Autodesk Construction Cloud. Like, what is marketing there? Like, what are you actually trying to achieve?
That's a great question. Marketing can be many things, right? I joke, depending on who you ask, some people think marketing is, two things: social media and swag, right? Those are the
Pretty
two big
accurate.
things that marketing that are highly visible. But marketing is obviously much more complex than that. The department I was running was an entire marketing department across, product marketing, product positioning, market research, messaging. How do you talk about the value that the product brings? It's content marketing, so doing everything from podcasts like we're doing here to blog to social media to long form research content that you produce in house. You would have demand generation, which is near and dear to my heart. Most of my career is in kind of growth marketing, demand gen, revenue marketing. So that's digital demand, account based marketing, events. Really what's driving the business results at the end of the day and really filling the funnel for sales. And then you have international marketing teams out there, doing growing in new markets. We had a team in Europe and in Asia Pacific at Autodesk, as well as in the US. And then you have creative and brand design, right? You have to be producing really great visual videography production in house. Once you reach a certain maturity level. And then last but not least, marketing ops is something also near and dear to my heart. Really all the infrastructure that runs a marketing team, all data analytics, reporting, ROI analysis, all the marketing tech and the tech stack. You have to be maintaining and managing at a really high level if you're going to hit these big growth numbers that we were going after. So pretty diverse set of functions, right, that comprise a B2B SaaS marketing team. And it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, so very, very varied. And I suppose as you move up the ladder, then your role becomes broader, right? Like versus you're just focusing on one thing. You're kind of like got your fingers in many things and seeing how they all interrelate and hopefully help you achieve the goals. Like, what were maybe some of the goals? Like, just I don't you have to go, don't be specific, but like, what were some of the goals that the marketing team had, and like, how would you measure the success of any of the campaigns against those goals?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think measurement is so critical, for any marketing team, right? Because, again, marketing can sometimes be a little nebulous, like what is the marketing team out there doing? And if you don't measure it really effectively, then, it's hard to communicate, that value you're creating. So I like to think of measurement and really marketing strategy across three different buckets. So, there's revenue marketing I mentioned. It's like, how much are you driving towards the bottom line, ARR, right? Recurring revenue for the business. So that's, lead generation, it's ABM, it's filling the funnel. Like I was saying, it's really driving demand for the product or suite of products or platforms that you're marketing as a team. And that can be measured really effectively through a pretty repeatable, funnel measurement strategy, lead to conversion to opportunity conversion to a one deal. And there's all sort of granular metrics you can track throughout that funnel and the life cycle to ensure you're optimizing for, closed one business at the end of the day for the sales team. That's the number one most important thing I'd say marketing drives and what you measure at the end of the day. But the other two buckets are little softer. So you have a bucket around brand that I like to measure. So, what is your brand reach out there in the market? It's way top of funnel. It's way before you get to the lead and opportunity and conversion level. You're talking about, who are you reaching? What is that reach, online or offline? These things become hard to measure, by the way, but there are a few ways
Yeah.
you can do it. And what is the category positioning? Brand reach, but also category positioning. So how are you ranking against your competitors in things like a Magic Quadrant report from Gartner or G2 or some of these analysts that are out there, kind of comparing you to the competition? Is that second bucket? And then the third is about really customer lifecycle. So some marketing teams might think that it stops after the sale, but actually I think marketing has to continue and is really on the hook to nurture new customers as they come in the door. Maybe it's their first experience with this company, right? And marketing is actually plays a big role, I think, in welcoming new customers in, making them feel like they're onboarded effectively, that they're valued as a new customer. And there's a lot of ways you can kind of track that, but ultimately convert them into advocates, for you. So they're out there marketing them on your behalf.
Yeah, so quite varied. I think that the toughest one for anyone to explain is always the brand, because like you said, it's so top of funnel. When I ask people this question, they're like, well, that's the question. Like, that is the question. But like, what's the meaning of life? Well, it's whatever you want it to be.
Major construction projects are complex, and delivery leaders know that things rarely go to plan. The problem is that most teams don't see what's slipping or why until it's too late. The best construction leaders know that in order to deliver on schedule, everyone needs to be planning together, committing to targets, and tracking performance every day. By bringing look-aheads, weekly work plans, visual staging diagrams, and daily activity briefings into one multiplayer platform, Afex gives the world's leading projects a single place to plan and coordinate their work. Join the largest contractors across Europe, the UK, Asia, Australia, and New Zealand. Learn more at aphex.co. That's aphex.co. In construction, precision matters. Every budget line, every schedule, every document. But too often, project data is scattered across tools and departments, creating risky silos. That's where ArcDesk comes in. ArcDesk is the all-in-one construction management platform designed to connect your entire project operation, from opportunity through to tender, all the way to handover. With real-time dashboards, cost control, scheduling, procurement, and document management in one place, ArcDesk gives you complete visibility and control. Trusted by contractors, subcontractors, and asset owners worldwide, ArcDesk has powered landmark projects from shopping centers to Europe's tallest buildings. If you're ready to reduce risk, protect your margins, and deliver projects with confidence, discover ArcDesk today and visit arcdesk.com, that's ARCH desk.com, and see how leading firms are building smarter with ArcDesk.
Can you just explain? I can't tell you how many times I've sat through conversations with people now related to marketing and go to market, and I hear this term, demand generation. Some days my brain is like, yeah, you know what that is. Some days it's like, no, what does that actually mean?
Yeah, let's talk about demand generation. So it also is fairly varied, right? And I think especially in AEC and certainly construction vertical, which I've been in most of my career, you have to know your audience and where they are. But at the end of the day, what you're trying to do is you're trying to reach your audience with awareness of the products you're trying to sell. You have to communicate that value to them and ultimately convert them into leads and pipeline, for the sales team. That's the ultimate goal for any demand generation function. But I think it stands on a few different legs. So there's digital marketing, that's become extremely prevalent across the last 10, 20 years, right? And gotten pretty advanced. So that's everything you see from, display advertising online and its simplest form to social media advertising, to paid search advertising, right? You have Google and Bing and these big search engines that still drive the majority, I'd say, of inbound demand, right? Someone's searching for something. Maybe it's your brand. Maybe it's a problem they're trying to solve. And you want your ad to be the top of the search results so they come and discover you, right, for the first time. So that's digital demand, and there's many other channels you can kind of throw in that mix. There's account-based marketing. So especially in vertical SaaS, right? We know our audience and, we know generally who those accounts are, and how do you then go more proactively as a marketing team out to those accounts versus nurturing them to come inbound towards you, right? So that's strategies that you can deploy, sometimes online, sometimes offline, but it's always in partnership with the sales team. So you have account strategies that you would put together with the sales team, either on a kind of one-to-one account basis. Say, we're going to go after this big enterprise account, and here's how we're going to do it in a really custom way. Or it can be one to few, where you have, hey, we have this cluster of accounts. They all look kind of similar, and they're trying to solve a similar problem. Let's go, run a campaign specifically targeting them to then convert them into interest. And then the last piece is events. So in-person events is, I think, an extremely important tactic and channel, especially in the construction vertical, where it's very relationship based. People really value that in-person time, kind of the handshake deals happening right at a conference or at a trade show or at a local
Golf course
chapter event, right? Yeah, golf outing, right? There's a lot of ways to reach the audience in person, and it can be expensive, and it takes people, right, to pull off those tactics. You can't just be behind a computer, reaching people online. You have to be out there in the wild. But those are extremely effective tactics for demand gen. So ABM, events, and digital are really the three legs of the stool, I think, for demand gen.
I really want to ask you about BuildOps, but I really want to ask you this as well. We'll get to BuildOps in a sec.
Yeah,
on the
sure.
account-based stuff, like if you're going after one client, say like a
Yep.
big enterprise account, what would you do? What are some typical examples of things that you might do, like the tactics that you would use as part of that account-based marketing campaign in order to get the attention of this potential customer?
For sure. Yeah, my favorite tactics, I think, with account-based marketing are a combination of things. So I think digital is still an important tactic for ABM. So for this account, say we're going after it, you and I, we're the account team talking about what they care about. Who's the buying committee? Like understanding that, right? Like who's making the decision at the end of the day. And in B2B SaaS, it's usually a group of people making that decision. It may not just be the CEO or the IT director, making the call. It might be them plus influencers, right? Who might be the project managers who will rely on this piece of technology to get their job done more efficiently. It might be the finance department that has a say, right, in what technology they're going to adopt as a company. So you got to know who those players are. Usually, the sales team and the ABM marketing team can partner to define that, and then you got to figure out how to reach them. So there could be really custom things. You might build a landing page that is really all about that company you're trying to reach. It'll have their logo on it. It'll have your logo on it. It'll talk about how you have everything they need, right, to solve their problem, and it's highly customized text and imagery for them. It might be something physical. It might be a direct mail program, and by direct mail, I mean you put together a custom swag box, right? We're talking about swag earlier. You have some nice logo gear that's also tailored to them. You may know the interest of the CEO in this case. You might put something in that box that is specifically interesting to him personally, right? To show, hey, you've done your research and want to be memorable, right? And that's a tactic that can be highly effective because it causes people to realize that you care about them. It's not just some one-to-many digital display ad. It's like, no, we really want to reach you, and we really want to talk to you, right? And so at the end of the day, it's about influencing the buying committee. It's about ideally getting a meeting, getting in front of these people, and then from there you're off on this into the sales cycle, I would say, right? And you're starting to really have some conversations. I think ABM plays a role throughout that whole sales cycle, though. By the way, I think there's things you can do late stage deal wise, right? You can actually go host a dinner, say on site with that buying committee, with the sales team, and do something really bespoke in person as well to help move that deal through the pipeline. But all those things together are probably the highest touch kind of ABM mix of tactics that you could do if it's a really big enterprise deal.
Yeah, and typically this is like a combination of things that you do over a period of time, which
Right.
which eventually they know who you are, and they might give you the time to have a conversation to hopefully close a deal.
That's right. That's right. I mean, sales cycles can be quite long. If you're doing a platform sale, especially in these enterprise deals. I mean, I can recall deals that were, multiple years long in some cases, right? Where you first meet the account, but, they're evaluating and they say, come talk to us, in 6 months, and you're slowly kind of warming them up, nurturing them to ultimately closing what would be probably a very large deal, right? But it could be a multi-year cycle. I think typically you see a cycle in the business I've been attached to about 90 days, on the kind of short to medium end, but up to a year plus in some of these big accounts.
Very cool. Okay, nice. All right, we will get into some more marketing tactics and
Sure.
jargon later on, but very curious to hear. Obviously, BuildOps, great company, as you already mentioned, one of the few unicorns in this industry. And so you recently were hired as CMO, Chief Marketing Officer there. Can you just introduce BuildOps, like what it does? People listening may not fully know the business, so it'd be good to hear.
Yeah, BuildOps, a really great company. They've been around. We're founded in 2018 and really started to take off growth-wise last few years here. So they've been growing at a pretty steady clip, getting a lot of attention. Got my attention, and I said, I want to join this rocket ship with the team and be a part of it. So I was hired, to really up level the marketing overall at the company. We were talking about brand earlier. Really going top of funnel, making sure the brand is out there, people are aware of it, driving revenue. Top goal, of course, of the marketing team, as we discussed, and then nurturing customers as they come in and really creating advocates at the end of the day. But BuildOps is a company that has built a pretty sophisticated, what I would call operating system for commercial trade contractors. So, a lot of companies are building software for the general contractors, for owners. BuildOps saw a problem in the market that said, hey, no one's building software for the trades, right? They're hundreds and thousands of people out there doing great work, building very large projects, subcontracting to large GCs in the construction world, doing maintenance and service, right, to all these buildings. So you think about HVAC systems, plumbing, electrical. These systems need service over time, over the life cycle of a building and an asset. These companies are out there, generating millions of dollars in revenue just doing service, right? And no one's building software to let them run their business effectively. And so our founder, Luke Chinani, he saw this problem and he decided to build a software solution that's tailor-made to this audience. And to me, it's the first time I've ever seen really anyone do that, which was incredibly compelling to me to see what we call product market fit be very, very high, right? It's tailor-made for a specific audience. It does that job very well. It's evolving over time with them as their businesses evolve, and they're able to do everything from project management on a construction site to service and maintenance to financial workflows. They can do all that in BuildOps as one SaaS platform. So pretty powerful tool for a market that can sometimes be overlooked, and underserved, certainly by technology.
When you say trade contractors, are these would these be more on? Because I did have a quick look on the website obviously before this, and I've got the impression it was more like services based, so like mechanical, HVAC, electrical, public, whatever it might be, versus like drywall or carpentry, roofing, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many trades out there, right, that complete a building project, like you said, drywall, concrete, carpentry, all that. BuildOps target really, and what we're built to service is MEP contractors at the end of the day. So that's HVAC, as you mentioned. It's electrical, it's plumbing, it's fire, life safety, low voltage. Some of these more complex systems that go into a building or need to be serviced, like you said, over time at a hospital or school, right? They're pretty complex workflows that our software is specifically targeted to solve. Less built for some of the other trades, carpentry, drywall, etc. Maybe over time we might expand there, but right now it's really MEP contractors who are our primary customer.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I know I didn't prepare you with this question, so it may be a little bit difficult to answer. But do you know what the rough size of the market is for trade contractors in MEP for this kind of software?
We talk a lot about we call it the TAM, the total addressable market, right, for this business. It's quite large. I won't put a dollar figure to it, but we're talking, hundreds of thousands of unique accounts and customers out there that have a problem to be solved. And that's just in the US and Canada, by the way. So we do see the opportunity to be quite big. And, there are a lot of people starting to recognize that opportunity is out there. But again, I would say the minority of those folks are actually fully digitized and using a solution like a BuildOps platform. So I think the opportunity is, quite big.
Yeah, and continues. Okay, fine. So yeah, I do find it interesting because, like you say, so many people are targeted for focus on the GC, but we hear time and time again, like the long tail of construction is like where the opportunity is. And where people, especially when we're doing these go-to-market actually discussions, it's much more like target the long tail. Like, okay, interesting. But I suppose it is like a totally different market to, even in your experience, marketing at Autodesk versus now marketing to a. Well, actually, you could tell me, but is it a completely different like persona that you have to try and attract?
It is different. Yeah, no, you're exactly right. I mean, I think, we talked about the opportunity just to target these trade contractors. There's a long tail of many, many people, ton of money, of course, and still selling to general contractors, to owners, really selling project management solutions to them. But there's opportunities on both sides. And I think, the marketing strategy, there's some similarities, but there's differences too. I think, at the end of the day, biggest thing I'm learning at BuildOps is how much these trade contractors rely on, service and maintenance contracts. Many of them, that's the bulk of their business, right? It's just servicing these buildings, keeping them running, keeping critical infrastructure in the country running. And the platform's built really primarily to serve that, and has moved now into supporting construction workflows, right? Because these companies, they're not just servicing projects, they're also building highly complex ground up vertical construction projects. In many cases subcontracted to a GC, right? So that's where, you have the Autodesks in there selling to that GC, but these trade contractors, again, need to run their business on something as well. And so the way you reach the audience is similar. It's still a, vertical SaaS and construction, they're still out there at trade shows. They're still online, looking at the same types of content, generally speaking. But what I've liked about, BuildOps unique angle specifically is how tailored it is, again, to the trade contractors, and you get to speak to them directly, right? And it's an audience, like I was saying before, can be overlooked a bit, right? Everyone's going after the big GCs and owners, but the trade contractors outnumber those folks, 10 to 1 by a number perspective. And so they're out there also needing a solution, and being able to kind of speak the language, celebrate what the trades are doing. It's a bit more of a blue collar audience, right? They're on site, getting dirty, doing the real work. That's the kind of, I think, authenticity and the marketing we're trying to do is to tell that story at the end of the day.
Okay, so you gave away some clues as to what your role is there right now. You mentioned top of funnel. I know that's not like the only thing, but I'm trying to connect the dots here between like the stage of where the company is at, Series C, 127 million raise, over $1 billion valuation, and perhaps where the priorities might lie. And my guess is that, like you say, is a lot of like more awareness space where you're trying to tell the world about BuildOps and the products and services that you offer. And so with that question, without you share obviously where you're comfortable with sharing, but and maybe you can be more generic if you can't give away too much, but say how do you raise top of funnel awareness?
Yeah. So, top of funnel can be many things. At the end of the day, though, it's about getting the brand out there, getting recognition for the brand. So, I'm always a big fan of, full funnel brand to demand campaigns. And by that, I mean, you're running content out there that is really just about reaching the audience in some emotional kind of way, right? So you want to connect with the audience, and that can be done many ways. That can be done through humor. It could be done through, eliciting empathy as an emotion, pride as an emotion. There's many ways, I think, to connect emotionally with the audience, but usually that's done in the form of video or a set of creative that going to bring somebody in who may never have heard of the company before. We did this at Autodesk. We're doing it now at BuildOps. But the point is, you want to reach the audience. You want them to engage in some way with your content. But it's not about the product at all, right? It's about some kind of emotional hook. Once they start engaging with that, they're technically in your funnel. So you can hopefully continue to reach them, whether that's retargeting them with other content, emailing them if they've given you, their email address, bringing them into your world to read your blog, articles, watch your podcast, maybe attend a webinar, right? Again, things that will add value to them and what they're looking for from just a pure content perspective. Again, not really selling them on what the solution does. If they decide they're interested in actually, solving some of those problems you've outlined in your brand kind of top of funnel campaigns, then they might start to learn about, okay, what does this platform do, right? How can it actually, service some of my day-to-day needs? And actually they may pass that on to someone else they work with, so a little closer to technology decisions, right? And then you bring them into the funnel, and you may create a lead out of the someone at that company. You may reach the sales team, and then you're off and running, with the sales cycle we talked about earlier. But if you only run the brand campaign and don't have it connected into the funnel, right, you have no next step, right? You have no way to actually, convert that person to some other level of interest. I think you're wasting your money, right? You're just, doing a brand campaign for the sake of it, and you're not actually driving business results at the end of the day. So I'm a big fan of doing that fully connected brand to demand funnel.
Yeah, so you mean not just ending the interaction, for lack of a better term, at the point of which they become aware, is actually then guiding them so there's like a clear path for them to move from the top of the funnel into like ultimately a sales conversation, hopefully a deal.
That's right. That's right. And, I see some marketing teams, they run a really awesome high dollar, commercial brand campaign, right? Which is great. And it will spike, I think, some awareness. But
Yeah.
again, if you haven't thought through the mechanics of that and kind of how do you convert that into real dollars and revenue at the end of the day for the company, then, I think you're doing yourself a disservice there.
Yeah. And also the problem with these large mass awareness campaigns is how much of the wrong person you attract as well.
That's right. That's right. And I think, that comes down to technology, data, what's available today. I think you can get pretty sophisticated these days with targeting, whether it's individuals or accounts, on all these digital platforms. You think of connected TV is an interesting one, right? A lot of us watch streaming services, and some of those services have their ad supported, right? You can actually know a lot about that user who's watching the shows that that they decide to watch on Peacock or Prime or any of these big
What they
streaming
might be
services,
into.
and
Yeah.
start to target them with some advertising that ideally is relevant to them, right? You only want to be reaching people, like you said, who are your audience, and you can't always know that, but sometimes you can get pretty targeted with that stuff. But if you're only spiking, some kind of awareness to the general population, and many of those people don't care about Autodesk, don't care about BuildOps, you are wasting some dollars there. I think you have to be able to really measure the results at the end of the day of what that big brand investment is. And many times that's a multi-million-dollar marketing investment, right? And there's a few ways you can do it. I think one of the ways I like that, we're testing this right now, BuildOps actually, is just running the brand campaign in a certain metro area, right? Pick a city, pick a state, pick a specific place where you want to run it, but don't run it anywhere else in the country. And then you see over maybe 6 months, maybe longer, was there any uplift in that specific market, even incrementally, 0.5%, 1%, of actual revenue dollars that, you see over a baseline that was established previously. And you can, directly or indirectly attribute that to the campaign that you ran in that specific metro area. So we call that incrementality testing. So you see incrementally how much did you get by running that. So that's a newer tactic. It's something, we're trying out. And it can prove out a little bit more of an ROI use case for these big brand campaigns.
And I guess you have some inclination as to which areas or metros or geographic locations are likely to have more of your target customer, and therefore these are the areas which you go after first, and then work your way.
That's exactly right. Yeah, it's all about data, right? So you look at your customer base, you look at where they're the target rich areas, right, for you to run these campaigns. So you try to pick one of those, right? First, you wouldn't run it in some random state where you don't have any prospects. So you pick that first, and then you look at, did you get some uplift out of running that campaign at the end of the day?
Interesting. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
How about channels then? What do you find are effective channels for targeting trades? I think it's also good because people love comparisons. Is like, what would it been like for Autodesk versus what's it like for a company like BuildOps?
Yeah. I think the biggest difference between the two, right, is, Autodesk, I would say, is almost a household name. It's certainly in the AEC industry, right? Construction, I think they're still growing and, becoming that household name in the construction vertical, which is a little bit adjacent to the core. But I mean, they've been around since 1982, right? Selling AEC software. So there's less of a brand awareness problem, I'd say, for a company like Autodesk. So in that way, you're really trying to reach new verticals, new audiences, right? Where the company can grow into, and you invest more heavily there. BuildOps, only being around, 7 years now, is newer. So you haven't found that breakthrough, right? You haven't, you're not on the minds yet, I'd say, of every single trade contractor, even the GCs. We want to be aware of us as a company and a brand. So there's work to be done, right? And I think that's where you're investing more in some of the awareness campaigns and reaching your audience where they are. But you're asking about where trade contractors, and again, I think out there in the wild, event marketing, being at all the trade association events, the local chapter events, is a great way to get in with some of these MVP trade contractors we found. Of course, online, everybody thinks construction is this old school audience, right? People are online. They're looking at content. They're on social media. That's also a great way, I think, to reach our audience. And at the end of the day, you just want people to be searching for your brand, finding your website, coming and looking at what you're selling at the end of the day, and that comes from investing, I think, across all those different areas, both online and offline.
Is it a fact that for the more trades contractors, they're more likely to be on platforms that are slightly more top of funnel, like TikTok, Instagram, maybe Facebook, versus the more higher intent platforms like LinkedIn?
I haven't seen data yet that necessarily confirms that, Owen, but I think you're probably right. I do know there is a heavy propensity for a lot of construction folks to be on TikTok. You mentioned that there are just a lot of big influencers there that are in that space that are highly popular in platforms like TikTok and Instagram. I think at the end of the day, video is a medium which I'm sure you're aware of is a very popular
Mm,
that goes throughout really horizontally across all verticals, but construction as well. Um, I love LinkedIn because it really is kind of the B2B best in class social media platform because people are there are usually for some sort of business reason already. Maybe their mindset is already searching out whether it's other colleagues, companies, solutions. So it does feel like a nice platform to talk about the solution that you're trying to market at the end of the day. But yeah, social media is a place to reach many different folks across all these channels, and it is a place we invest in pretty heavily.
yeah. Yeah, very curious. You have um like lots of different styles of influencer on these platforms. And I was very surprised to see a very, very, very large document management company in that targets like horizontal industry, but I think majority of their
Yeah,
customer base in the AEC actually have invested in influencer marketing on platforms like TikTok. And when someone sent this to me, I was like, "That's absolutely wild to see something like that because you just don't expect
yeah,
it." But you have
yeah.
these micro kind of influencer style movements across each of the
It's
platforms.
happening more and more. Yeah, yeah. To see, influencer marketing, which you think of as maybe more of a B2C type of marketing tactic, right, is actually finding some roots, I think, in B2B marketing as well. And,
Mm,
having people who they have the following, right? You know that following is a target rich environment for you as a marketing team. And, it can make sense to try that out. It's not something I've actually deployed yet, but it's something we're looking at.
yeah, very cool. Um, okay, nice. Yeah, we talked about events. Talked about. Are there specific pieces of content that you find are more suitable for like trade contractors versus other type? Obviously, we talked about video, but like maybe there is
Yeah.
like blog. I doubt it, but I don't know. Maybe blogs perform best in this industry.
Blogs, I think is a tried and true, written medium that, uh, depending on the content, right, it has to be good content. It
Yeah.
has to be, interesting and rich content, not just sort of like SEO generated, listicle type of stuff, right? It has to be adding value. But yeah, people still read blogs, we find. But I do think, to me, the most interesting and engaging and high value content we've been creating, but, both at Autodesk and now at BuildOps as well, is the form of research reports.
Mm,
I think kind of longer form research that is tailored to the audience. Again, that teaches them something they're looking to learn about. Uh, you have to invest as a company into
mm,
it, right? It's usually all survey or proprietary data that you have access to. But that can be really compelling when you're releasing a research report on some sort of quarterly or annual cadence as a company. I think the best types are benchmarking style reports that you release, say, call it annually, and you start to sort of track over time how things are changing, trends in the industry that are relevant to your audience, and are usually again based on data that you have access to as a company. And that's where you gain a following, and people are sort of anticipating the release of this report every year, and then you can start to really drive, I think, some again awareness and demand out of that.
okay, interesting. Hey, it's almost like we prepared a report for this discussion, which we will get to in a shortly in a little while. But the AI report that you released.
Hey listeners, I want to take a quick break to remind you about the Bricks and Bytes newsletter. If you're interested in learning about the technology shaping the future of construction, you won't want to miss the valuable insights we share each week. To get this exclusive content delivered straight to your inbox, head over to www.bricks-bytes.com and sign up today. Link is in the show notes. Back to the show.
Yeah.
Um, so we can talk about that, and I'll maybe hear about some of the. I don't know if it's too early to measure, but hear about maybe perhaps some of the marketing success that was born out of that as well. Just quickly though, before we go there, I'll be very interested to hear about like marketing. So a lot of obviously marketing, but like testing different types of marketing because so much of it is like, okay, we have to try something, we have to see the
Yep.
results, and then we have to decide: is it worth doing that again? Is it worth trying something else? Do we do it again but add something else? So I'm curious, Colin, to hear like how you tackle the testing kind of motion?
Yeah, testing is super important, I think, for any marketing team. I think you can do research, you can know your audience, but you have to just try some things at the end of the day to validate, is it resonating? So testing can be done across ton different ways. I think ads is a great place to test because it's high volume. So ad copy, right, that you're putting in a social media ad, a display ad, search advertising, can be highly iterative, and a lot of the ad platforms actually allow you to test and put certain ads against others, right, to see which one is outperforming, and the platforms now are auto optimizing, right, for the most clicks and engagement. And it tells you what message resonates, right? So you can have two wildly different messages that you're testing against each other, or two very similar ones, but there's almost always going to be a winner, right? That the data will show you. And when you land on that, then you can start to actually take that data, and it should influence your core marketing messaging as well. So if there's some kind of value proposition you're putting in an ad that is clearly winning over others, you should integrate that into your website. You should integrate that into your field marketing strategy and the booth design as you show up at these conferences. You can start to have a really tightly integrated marketing mix, right, where again the message has been validated by what your customers or prospects are engaging with the most. And I think that's an interesting way to take the testing result and apply it more broadly across what you're doing as a marketing department. I think the other place is A/B testing and just on your website itself, right? Especially if you're getting a high enough volume of traffic. What you put top of fold on the website and your big hook and header is a popular testing spot to see, hey, if I tweak some words here or there, if I change the image here or there, we actually see people are staying on the site longer, or they're actually clicking on a conversion point that we want them to click on. And then the last place I think is in the actual CTA, call to action buttons themselves, right? That's a really highly tested area where do I change the color of the button from yellow to orange, and does that
Have a hover, a round border, square border?
do we have exactly the rounded square border, the hover state, the text in the CTA itself? That's probably the most highly tested area. All marketers, I think, would agree that CTA is a discussion topic. We can have a whole podcast just on that if you want.
Yeah, I know. I have spent many a time procrastinating on call to actions, and they know that leads to inaction. So maybe best just to get something out there and see what happens.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, that's interesting. What about like from a bigger perspective, like a bigger campaign where maybe you're starting fresh, like you don't have that data from previous, and you're just like, right, for example, we're gonna launch a podcast doing this. And like it's a little bit done on a whim, say. At what, like, okay, does that exist? Is that a stupid thing to do? One, and two, at what point would you determine, you know what, like this is not worth the time? I'm sorry, it's a very loaded and broad question, but yeah, maybe there is some way to answer it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the question of when do you really invest in campaigns is what you're getting at, right? As a marketing team, and by campaign, I mean a really unique set of creative that's all the way from brand awareness, kind of top of funnel, all the way through the funnel down to conversion, and that can be a pretty big effort, right? It means specific hook, a specific creative style, message, everything. For me, and even in my role at BuildOps, again, only a couple quarters in. Campaigns come later, I would say, to the marketing mix. You need the foundation in place first. So you need to have your tech stack, optimized. You need to be able to measure and report on marketing effectiveness, just evergreen marketing, right? Just the stuff that you're putting out there just to drive baseline business. You have to have all your house and foundation in order before you can start to get creative and try some really fun things that are, again, more full funnel campaigns. So at the end of the day, I like to say, you get the house in order, and then you can start to really run some campaigns that might drive incremental, business results on top of that foundation. But to answer your question, when do you decide to do that? I think your foundation's in place. You're ready to start testing some creative, and what validates the investment was worth it is because you have all that data and reporting capability already in place. You can then start to see, are we getting ROI from this campaign? Is it driving leads? Is it driving pipeline? Is it driving ARR at the end of the day? And then you can say, okay, yes, it is, and we're going to invest way more. We're going to do a new campaign every quarter, every year, right? Whatever you feel like is right for your audience. And that's when, I have the most fun as a marketer, right? Doing the creative side of marketing plus sort of that science side of marketing, and really using data to validate the strategy. And I think the best marketing teams are doing both those things very well.
Yeah, good. Yeah, well taken. Okay. I think we answered a few of these questions here. So, how about traditional channels like in the offline world, like print
Mm.
or events we've already talked about. I
Yeah.
don't know if there's other things that are missing, but yeah, maybe just talk about that. Is it still an effective strategy? Has it become more effective because like digital is becoming continues to
Yeah.
saturate, I
I,
suppose.
I think so. I think offline, again, a big fan of online and offline mix of marketing. You have to do both in today's world. I think offline, we see a bunch of ways. Events we talked about for sure, probably the biggest investment in offline marketing. Direct mail, we talked a little bit about the kind of ABM tactic where you're sending a physical gift or you're sending a physical package to a person, right? That feels special today because so much stuff is happening online. So much marketing is happening online. People kind of moved away from the physical mailers, and I think I've seen that be actually a very effective tactic in construction verticals specifically. And then the other is really advertising that's happening not online but offline, out of home we call it. So billboard advertising. Maybe you're doing a takeover surrounding a conference, right, where you want to get your brand out there. So you're buying up inventory in the airport. You're buying up inventory around the convention center. I've seen companies wrap cars, have your logo driving around the
Airplanes
conference.
with banners on the back of them.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's all on the table, right? So I think, but if done really effectively and thoughtfully, that stuff can move the needle. It does go back to our question earlier on how do you measure, incremental value that you're getting from those investments, because those things do cost
Mm,
quite a bit of your marketing budget. But if you know your audience is going to be there, you know that you have an awareness problem, then you can justify, I think, spending money on some of those offline tactics. But you got to be online too, so you have to be doing both, I think, at the same time to really effectively have that full surround sound, omni-channel marketing we call it, to eventually, have the breakthrough that you're looking for.
yeah, very cool. Okay, how about structure of marketing teams? Like,
Mhm.
um, Colin, I know, like, I don't think you've worked like, maybe you have. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not sure you've worked at the early stage of startups before, right?
That's right. Yeah.
You have?
Yeah. Yeah. Just no, just Autodesk, big publicly traded company, right? And now BuildOps, late stage startup, but never been part of a seed round, Series A startup. Not yet.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, because I was going to ask you like how you think about structuring marketing teams from like the earliest days all the way through to
Yep.
when you've got resource to have 100 people. You're definitely at the like the longer the topper end of that where you have big teams. But maybe that's still an
Yeah.
interesting topic to explore. Um um like yeah, maybe you can talk about like how you structure a team. Like you could give us a case study of how BuildOps is structured internally. Is it more resource heavy in certain aspects of the marketing team, or is
Right.
it quite spread across like each potential channel that exists?
Yeah, I mean, I think any early stage marketing team, which is usually very small, right? Call it less than 5 people. You have to start with great product marketing. And product marketing, especially at a startup and B2B SaaS, can mean many things. So it can be the person writing all the copy for the website. They may be doing all that baseline kind of messaging and positioning, value proposition, communication. They're going to be working with the product development team to understand, what's coming next. How do we plan the roadmap together? It's a highly strategic role that to me is the foundation of any good marketing team. So that has to come first. I think that's the foundation. Then you build everything else on top of. Usually next, you're going to add some kind of demand generation growth marketer who's going to drive some leads, right, for the sales team. And so you'd have somebody partnering then with that product marketer to start to run some things online, run some campaigns and demand gen campaigns. That may be the same person, or maybe your third hire is an event marketer that's going to be then out there in the field, doing some of the event marketing, etc. And I think at that point, usually you're going to start to need some kind of operations person, right, to start running
Mm,
the tech stack we talked about earlier, right? Make sure you're measuring data, you're able to report on it, your email marketing system is working correctly, kind of someone to tinker with things under the hood and make sure the machine is operating. But then you build from there. You start to get the ability to hire a content marketer, maybe a second or third demand gen marketer, Maybe you start to build out the product marketing team from there. But those are the building blocks, I think, for any good marketing team. And it really, it starts with 1 or 2 people, right, in these early stage startups, and then you build up from there.
Yeah, very cool. Okay, nice. Can you tell us a little bit about what people should have in their marketing tech stack? Any tools you love?
Hmm. Yeah, I love that question. I mean, any marketing tech stack's built on some kind of marketing automation platform first and foremost, right? You have a HubSpot, you have a Marketo, Pardot, one of these tools. But I think the third party tools that connect into that are the most exciting, and most innovative usually, I've found. And so I think the unlock, we found both in my time at Autodesk, and we're building this as well at BuildOps, is you need a really strong data layer, data infrastructure, that underpins all of this. So not just the marketing automation system, but your CRM system, your product analytics have to feed into some kind of data warehouse that is accessible by all the go-to-market teams. And it really becomes, I'd say, the foundation for any good go-to-market motion, where you have customer data, you have product analytics, you have marketing engagement, behavioral data, all going into one place, that then you can build on top of, right? So you can report on that, but you can also hook up some of my favorite new technology like AI, agentic tools, right? That can then query that data, maybe go outbound, start emailing, start reaching prospects, both on the website from a dynamic personalization perspective, or even via text message, right? Like there's all these channels that these AI agents can now use to actually reach prospects and customers actually at scale through minimal investment in new people that you may not have the luxury of hiring, right, in an early stage company, especially.
Do you have someone now that in BuildOps that is just responsible for, like, let's say AI and like marketing, like as in keeping the team up to date with the tools that exist? Because it's such a quick moving industry, and like what
It is.
one week has completely changed the next week, and obviously there is then a bit of a learning curve for some of these automations and agents that exist to get them to work to uh, work well, where you're just not spamming people with terrible outbound and this kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, you definitely want, I'd say, 1 or 2 experts that really understand those tools, right, or have done them before, or are willing to really go deep and learn them. I do think in today's modern, certainly B2B SaaS marketing team, almost everyone needs to be AI enabled in some way. People have to embrace this stuff. It's changing so quickly, as you said, but it also is just unlocking so much efficiency for a marketer, right? You have marketing being a function that's highly language intensive, right? We're all writers. We're creating a lot of content, or putting new things out there. We're testing. I mean, AI, especially LLM, GPT type of workflows, are unlocking a ton of efficiency there. So you don't want to just take the output from AI clearly and publish that, right? You do need the marketer and an editor kind of mindset to make it ready for consumption. But everybody has to be using AI in any kind of modern marketing team, or else you're just going to be lagging behind, I think, at the end of the day. But some of the really specialized, agentic stuff, right? If you're using like a qualified tool, relevance AI, some of these tools that do take a little bit more technical, still, you want a specialist on the team who can run that for you.
Hmm. Very cool. Nice.
Yeah,
Okay, Colin, let's spend the next 10 minutes or so talking about the BuildOps report. So I have in
sure.
my notes AI report, but then I think the title you have a pivot point report, the official one.
Yeah, the pivot point. Yes, it's a research report BuildOps authored. We released it a few months back, and it was the result of a survey of about 600 trade contractors, so MEP contractors in the U.S. and Canada. And we asked them a bunch of questions. We asked them a lot of questions about AI adoption, though, specifically, and found some really interesting things come back from that.
Like I have some of the stats here. So
Yeah,
91% of participants reported that bidding's more competitive than ever.
yeah, yeah. I think we notice a theme around just increasing pressure, right? I think there's so much happening in the trade contracting and in construction industry broadly. Things are getting more competitive. So that data point, 91% report bidding being more competitive than ever. I think it just shows you that, there is a lot of work out there to be had, but there's also expectations that bids are turned around very quickly, to respond to an RFP or to a bid request. You know, um, the environment is getting more complex from a regulation and compliance perspective, right? You see these big infrastructure projects, data centers, right, are top of mind, I think, for everyone right now. These things are complex projects that have, strict compliance regulations attached to them. Not every contractor may be familiar with that, and they're, doing research just to get the bid out the door. And so there's a lot of pressure happening from, bidding competition, as well as labor shortages is the other thing we saw, right? Where it's very hard to hire in to open roles right now for a lot of the trade contractors, because of just a macro,
Yeah.
environmental thing where, we don't have enough people going to trade school anymore and even entering the trades. And
And
so
data
that's something to
centers took
report.
them all as well,
That's right. Yeah, they're getting sucked up by
and
those
pay
mega
pay
projects.
them like much more than what the traditional project might.
Correct. Correct.
Mm. Yeah, interesting dynamic there. Yeah, 69% of people workforce experiencing burnout as well.
Yeah, burnout is a theme we saw in the report too, which you can understand it, right? You have a labor shortage. You have not enough people to come in and do the work and the service the backlog that these companies have. You have technicians out on site, servicing jobs, doing ground up construction. But you also have people in the office, right? You think about the operational folks who are in house, right? In the back office, dispatching technicians out into jobs, doing labor costing, invoicing, bidding as well. And usually that's in some of these smaller shops, it's like one person, right, doing all that work, in house, and trying to keep their head on straight as they're, doing all those jobs. So you can imagine how, burnout becomes an issue for some of these folks in the industry that are just not getting, enough people to come in and service some of that work.
Hmm. Interesting. How about what does like an AI adoption look like in a typical trade contractor? It can be quite again broad because they're all totally vary. But are these folks utilizing AI, or do they not have the resource to be able to, or are they just not because maybe they don't think that? Well, they must hear about it, but maybe they just don't think that they need to.
Yeah, I think AI adoption in particular was a surprising stat that came out of this report as well. So, we saw 78% of trade contractors specifically who we surveyed are either have adopted AI workflow or in the process of implementing AI workflows within their day to day,
It's
which
quite significant.
was incredibly surprising. You think of, yeah, especially trade contractors, maybe being a little slower to adopt technology. This shows they're actually out front, kind of leading the way. And I think it may be because of some of those macro economical factors we talked about, right, with labor shortage, burnout, bidding competition. But I think the fact that they are using it is really encouraging, and it shows that they're modernizing as quickly, or maybe more quickly than even some other verticals. So, what type of AI are they adopting? You asked about, it varies, of course. It could be someone as simple as doing natural language search, to find an answer to a question. It could be dropping in, some as built or bidding documents to quickly turn around a rough, a rough first draft of a bid. It could be someone looking up compliance documentation for a new project that they're needing to learn about, or it could be more advanced, workflows that platforms like BuildOps provide, right, where you're actually doing AI workflows that are dispatched natively within their day-to-day workflow within in BuildOps. Smart dispatching, automated note taking on site, serial number lookups, right? That query a database automatically for you. So some of those things will unlock, I think, bigger efficiencies. But the 78% of trade contractors adopting this stuff, runs the gamut across all those different use cases.
Mm. Are they any of them using AI for marketing? I don't know if this was in the
Good
report,
question.
but as you're a marketing guy.
They may be, they should be if they're not. I think again, depending on the size of the company, marketing department might be the same person also, doing the invoicing and dispatch. But
Yeah.
at a larger company, you would hope that the marketing department is using AI to write copy and chase new work and integrate into the CRM workflows that they're using today to drive new business.
Mm. I know I'm going a little bit off topic here. We'll come back to this report in a sec, but do you
Yep.
have any thoughts about how trade contractors should market themselves?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think trade contractors, and it was shown in our data as well, don't have a shortage of business. I think they're in high demand, right? You
Mm.
have trade contractors too are high demand both for vertical commercial construction projects as well as just a service, the infrastructure and systems, right, that exist throughout the country. But I think, the industry, trade contractors do need to market themselves, both from a local presence perspective as well as ones that are operating nationally. Just for the same reasons we were talking about, a B2B marketing software department is needing to market itself. Brand awareness. You need to know who these people are. So if someone is a building owner or a general contractor is looking to hire a new company, there needs to be some awareness of who you are out there in the market. So in that way, it's not that much different, I'd say, than we're doing on the B2B front as well.
Mm, mm. Interesting. Yeah, I was having a good conversation with someone about the other day about this
Hmm.
marketing, and um, it like does really vary in the trade contractors. Like you kind of hinted at earlier, like either the person doing the marketing is also doing like some other functions within the business, or they do have someone that they can dedicate time to it. And so it really does depend, like at what scale of the business you are when thinking about this.
That's right.
Yeah. Is there anything else, Colin, within the report that was like particularly worth regurgitating?
Yeah, I mean, I think, the adoption metric was the most surprising for sure. We have 4 out of 5 these trade contractors adopting AI. I think the other interesting surprise was the hurdle that they're finding. What's stopping them from adopting AI is not a fear of the technology. It's not access issues. It's really training issues, right? They don't know how to get started, or they don't have the technical knowledge to bring it in house. And to me, that's a very solvable problem. I think, there are a lot of resources out there to, teach someone who's never used AI before how to use it. There are also companies that, offer training and, can come in and upskill you. I think the other place where that's going to come naturally is the new generation coming in to these workforces, right? Talk
Mm.
about Gen Z, who grew up, digital native, AI native in some cases, are going to just be bringing it in naturally as they are doing their job day to day. And they'll actually train maybe some of the older generations that haven't grown up with that same technology. So I think all of those things together will actually increase that 78% adoption rate over the coming years very quickly. And it gives me hope that, these trade contractors will be fully AI operational, in no time.
Yeah, I do find it fascinating the fact that maybe these people are not like totally tuned into what's going on in the world, and nowadays with the advent of tools, I feel like I talk about this all the time, but like
Mhm.
it is just so prevalent right now. And having used some of this stuff like Claude Code and the impact it
Yeah,
can have on your business, and the stuff that we weren't able to do before, that you can now do from like, it took me like less than an hour to learn how to use Claude Code, and it took me maybe another hour to write something which like gives me access information to data in such a way that I'd never seen before, and was able to unlock like massive insights, like even in Bricks and Bytes and the content we produce about like what you think was working actually according to the data isn't, and just gives you directions. and
right.
and like this wasn't possible even a year ago. So keeping up to speed. Yeah, I do wonder how, like, specifically in construction, as I know the typical term goes, it's like tough to adopt technology, blah 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 blah. But I think that,
Sure.
yeah, like this issue will majorly accelerate if people don't think about it in the current day and age. And even if so, like your
I
competitors, like maybe they have a smart savvy AI Gen Z. I think you put in the report,
Yeah,
guy that's there that's just like plugging away at doing all these little automations, which suddenly gives them a major competitive edge.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's changing so quickly, as you were saying, and I think, changing my data as a marketer,
Mm.
from a ability to write more quickly and produce, volume of content, do deep research reports. We used to have to hire a agency to come in and
Mm.
do some market research. We can now do that in minutes, right? With some of these deep research engines, which is super valuable, right? I mean, we're talking tens of thousands of dollars of savings overnight for a marketing team. But also this can be applied, to the trade contracting vertical as well. People building, cloud code you mentioned, like literally just a few weeks ago, right? That came to market
Mm.
and it's already being adopted quickly. People are building mini applications, right, that are highly customized to how their business operates. People are, coding on top of platforms that exist as well, and creating third party applications that help run their business. And some of these more mature trade contractors, especially the larger ones, they're hiring data scientists, they're hiring data engineers, they're almost operating like mini software companies on their own, right? Because they see how much efficiency can be gained when you're building some of these things in house, right? On top of that data layer that you may have access to. So it's pretty interesting times, I think, for the construction industry. And again, I'm highly encouraged because the demand is out there. The ability to meet that demand in the market is almost impossible. And so I think with some of these technological advancements, we'll be able to close that gap.
Yeah, exciting times
Yeah,
to be. It feels like everyone's becoming a beginner again, which is quite fun to think about, and
yeah.
also do you experience this newborn energy that you're able to, yeah, just like do something. Someone explained to me like it was the first time they had felt flow state in their work for like years. I was like, that's exactly what it feels like. Actually, you just do this stuff for hours, and you're like, oh, this feels great.
It is pretty cool. I mean, I'll speak, personally, I've been able to get a lot done on my own as a single, marketer
Mm,
that would have taken a massive team to do before. And, whether it's, research I'm doing late at night, just, talking to Gemini
mm,
or, doing my own, written reports and data analytics, like you were saying you've done with Bricks and Bytes, doing that, again, in minutes without needing a whole team to go parse through all of that. That's a step function, unlock to productivity, regardless of what vertical you're in. So it's pretty exciting, and I feel like something new is coming every day, like you said.
yeah, for sure. Okay, all right, Colin. Well, thank you so much. We
Yeah,
will put a copy of the this report in the show notes for people to download.
great.
And yeah, looking forward to seeing how BuildOps grows in the next few years, and the incoming IPO hopefully in the next few years as well. So, yeah, thanks so much for joining us and teaching and educating us about marketing and AEC and BuildOps and whatnot. Is there anything that BuildOps is plugging or promoting at the moment that you want to share with the audience? Hiring, etc.
Yeah, no, again, thanks for having me on. This has been super, super fun. I think, yeah, come find BuildOps online. A few things to talk about. We're hiring, of course, we're growing very quickly, hiring across a number of roles. So we love to, talk to any top talent who has some experience in construction tech, especially. But the other things I'll talk about, we released a podcast recently too. So go check out BuildOps podcast. It's called Commercial Grade, and it's just really a set of conversations with trade contractors and other adjacent folks who are attached to the business that we're putting out some pretty cool insights. So check that out online.
Yeah, very cool. Nice one. Okay, Colin, thank you so much.
Thanks, Owen. Appreciate it.
Cheers.